Mr. Harris.
Thank you everyone for being here tonight, and for those people watching on television. I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters and ATEC for hosting this event. I am Judge Tom Harris, and I've been judge of the Conneaut Municipal Court for over 25 years. I'm a candidate for the Court of Common Pleas, specifically the seat currently held by Judge Al Mackey, who is retiring. I was appointed judge of the Conneaut Municipal Court by the governor, and I was elected in 1989, 1995, 2001, 2007, and 2013. I'm a past president of the Association of Municipal and County Court Judges of Ohio. I'm a member of the Northern Ohio Judges Association and the American Judges Association. I'm a former member of the Executive Board of the Ohio Judicial Conference and a former chairman of the Criminal Law and Procedure Committee for the Ohio Judicial Conference. I've been an instructor for the Ohio Judicial College, and I've attended the National Judicial College. I've also served as a mentor for new judges. Prior to becoming a judge, I was the Chief Assistant County Prosecutor here in Ashtabula County, and I also maintained a private law practice. I've been involved in many community service organizations. I'm a past president of the Conneaut Rotary Club, and I've been involved in the Northeast Ohio Soapbox Derby, the My Day in Court program, which I founded 26 years ago, is currently in existence, and I personally believe that candidates who want to serve their community should be leaders and actively participate in their community organizations. Like many government offices in our state, my court has had to reduce staff size over the last few years due to limited funds. And like many courts in our region, criminal caseloads have gone up while resources needed to deal with those problems have gone down. I'm pleased to report to all of you that my court and myself have been able to handle those increased burdens. There is more to being a judge than simply wearing a robe and sitting in a courtroom. You have to know how to fairly and impartially decide cases. You have to apply the law to the facts. You have to administer the court, the personnel, and utilize the limited resources available to the judicial branch in an effort to get the best possible result. I am the only candidate in my race who is a judge. I am the only one who has the responsibility to submit a budget and to properly operate a government office within that budget. I would like to point out that all four of our current county judges held elective public office prior to obtaining their current positions. This is very important because they had to learn how to accomplish their assigned task with limited resources. Remember, it costs less money to hire somebody who already knows how to do the job. After 25 years in office, I continue to enjoy being a judge. I would continue to enjoy serving you as your judge here in Ashtabula County, and I hope to have your support on November 4th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, League of Women Voters. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Might be easy.
Am I being timed right now?
No.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, League of Women Voters. Thank you, ATEC, for inviting us here. My name is Ariana Tarighati, and I'm running for the bench that Judge Mackey is retiring from. I am a proud resident of this county. I live in Roaming Shores with my handsome son, Robert, who's 14 years old. I'm a proud graduate of Jefferson Area High School. I went to Kent State University, where I graduated with honors, and then I went to Cleveland Marshall College of Law, where I graduated with my Juris Doctorate degree. I've been an attorney for 26 years. I spent 17 of those years as a prosecutor. As a prosecutor, I handled rapes, murders, capital cases, child rapes, burglaries, robberies, drug cases, you name it, I've handled them. Cases that went to jury, and I had jury trials. As I said, I've been a prosecutor for 17 years. Most memorably, I prosecuted the Jeffrey Lundgren, or helped to prosecute the Jeffrey Lundgren cult murder cases with former Congressman Steve LaTourette. Jeffrey Lundgren, if you recall, ultimately received the death penalty. I was the chief assistant in this county for 8 years, the chief assistant in Ashtabula County. During that 8-year period, I worked with Tom Sartini, and we prosecuted cop killer Audrey Jones, who currently sits on death row for killing a beloved police officer in our community. I have also been an acting judge in the municipal court where they handle primarily misdemeanors and traffic tickets. I have also argued before the 11th District Court of Appeals. I have argued before the Ohio Supreme Court. I have handled cases in federal district court, in the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals, and in front of the United States Supreme Court. I went into private practice in 2005, and I guess you'd now say that I'm a small business owner. I have my own law office in Jefferson, Ohio. In private practice, I have handled criminal matters, civil matters, appellate matters, and I'm also the guardian ad litem for hundreds of children in our community. When parents can't get along and they're fighting over custody in a divorce case or in a juvenile case, I act on behalf of that child and act in that child's best interest, and I make recommendations to the court. I make recommendations to the court of common pleas in a domestic case or to the juvenile court in a juvenile case. I've spent the last 26 years or so of my career in the court of common pleas, practicing in the court of common pleas. My opponent talks about not having somebody come and learn the job. I'm not going to have to learn the job. I've been in that court day in, day out. As a matter of fact, I have a trial tomorrow morning before Judge Vettel. That's how often I'm in the court of common pleas.
Thank you. Do you have a recommendation to resolve the overcrowding in our county jail? Mr. Harris.
Well, Ashtabula County Prosecutor Nick Irochi convened a meeting of the lower trial court judges in this county to work on that problem. There's obviously 5 components to dealing with jail, and that's education, job training, substance abuse, and mental health counseling, supervision, and incarceration is one of the 5 options that are available to judges when sentencing. But we're dealing with that, but it all gets back to funding. And the funding, when the local revenue funds were cut by the state to the counties and the cities, that reduced the amount of money that they had to incarcerate, and it reduces the amount of money that we have to deal with that problem. And I would like to point out, because some people don't fully understand this, it costs money to build jails, but it costs a lot of money to operate jails. And you have to have people at the judicial level who can balance the limited funds that are available to the communities in order to deal with that problem.
Ms. Tarighati.
Would you please repeat the question?
Do you have a recommendation to resolve the overcrowding in our county jail?
Our jails are overcrowded, and part of the problem is that we have community-based sanctions now that the legislature decided back in 1996 that certain crimes, it was better to keep people locally punished rather than being sent to prisons, and that was because of prison overpopulation. So what our communities now must do are find varying steps for treatment. And my suggestion would be, and as a judge, you don't really participate in the actual decision-making in terms of how many people are going to be in the jail, that sort of thing. That's something that needs to be worked out with the court, or with the commissioners, with the sheriff, and with the budget.
Thank you. How many cases have you tried in court?
Jury trials, I've tried at least, I'd say between 50 and 100 jury trials. I'm not going to say an exact number because I, unfortunately, over the 26 years of my career, I've only paid attention to the number of cases that I've lost, and that's 3. But I never kept track of all the jury trials, all the bench trials. Again, in Common Pleas Court, where I've actually been in front of a judge, I've tried very many cases in front of Judge Mackey, whose bench I am now seeking to hold.
Mr. Harris.
Well, you have to remember I'm also a judge, so I've tried a lot of cases, but I've tried civil and criminal jury trials. At the common pleas level, as a private lawyer and as the chief assistant prosecutor, I tried numerous jury trials. I did not keep count. I believe the most I tried in 1 year was 11 jury trials as an attorney. As a judge, I've disposed of over 86,000 cases. I can't give you a number because there's just so many that you tend to lose track of them once you get above 50,000. So I don't know. Sorry that I can't give you a better number than that, but there's a lot of cases.
Do you believe that prior judicial experience is critical for the position of a common pleas judge?
Are you asking me?
Mr.
Okay. I personally think that it's very important to have an understanding of the limitations available to the court when running a court. So I would answer that question in the affirmative, because it's not, as I said earlier, simply putting on a robe and sitting in the courtroom. It's administering the court, utilizing limited resources to solve problems. And I would like to point out that, you know, I've had the experience as a chief assistant prosecutor. I've had the experience as a private practitioner. And as a municipal court judge, I've conducted civil and criminal jury trials. I've conducted and ruled on the admissibility of evidence. I administer the court and the court personnel and solve the problems with limited resources. I've ordered that offenders be incarcerated, placed on probation, ordered into mental health and substance abuse treatment, and I found defendants not competent to stand trial and not guilty by reason of insanity. And all of those duties are the same duties that are imposed upon a common pleas court judge.
Ms. Tarighati.
I have judicial experience. As I indicated earlier, I have been acting judge in municipal court, which is the same level of court that my opponent has been sitting for the last, I believe, 25 years. My experience in the actual court where I want to be the judge, I believe, is critical. I have actually handled the types of cases that I as a judge would handle on a day-in, day-out basis. I have tried a capital case. I would know how to make rulings on capital cases. Unfortunately, in this county, we have murders pretty much every few weeks. We've had quite a few capital cases this year, and I would be ready to handle a capital case if need be because I've done it before.
Thank you. Candidates for Common Pleas Court, beginning 2015.
Yes. Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. My name is Christopher Altier, and I'm running for the probate and juvenile judgeship. I am a native of Ashtabula, Ohio, the son of Dr. and Mrs. Samuel Altier. I graduated from the College of Worcester, where I received a Bachelor of Arts degree. I then went to the University of Akron and received my JD, the law degree. After that, I did some postgraduate work and received a master's in legal letters in estate planning at the University of Miami in Coral Gables, Florida. I am admitted to practice in all the courts in Ohio, as well as the United States Tax Court. For the last 25 years, I have been in private practice in Ashtabula, handling many cases heard in the probate juvenile court. I have also done extensive real estate work. I started the Ashtabula Land Title Agency, which is a real estate closing firm for residential as well as commercial transactions, and we've handled over 14,000 cases in the last 19 years. The probate juvenile court is much different than the general division of common pleas. Probate cases are generally adoptions, estate administration, guardianships, minor settlements, wrongful deaths, and trust administration. Juvenile court, which is also within probate court jurisdiction, they're combined here because our county is small, include abuse, neglect, custody, visitation, delinquency, and support, as well as some traffic tickets. During the last 25 years, I worked with Jobs and Family Services, as well as the Adult Protective Service, and helped coordinate and begin the volunteer guardianship program, which was critically needed in this county to advocate for the elderly. Through cooperation of various agencies, and without additional tax dollars, we were able to create and maintain that program. I've had extensive civic involvement from the Marine Museum, Finnish American Heritage Society, formed the Ashtabula Park District Foundation, and set up the Cynthia Nymarsh Township Park Trust. In addition, I've served on the Salvation Army Board and the Cancer Society. I believe it's imperative the successor to this judgeship have practical experience in handling cases which the probate juvenile court hears. And administratively, I have a successful private practice and title agency, which clearly shows I'm a self-starter and innovative. And I ask for your support in November. Thank you.
Well, good evening. I'm Albert Camplese. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, ATEC, for hosting this event. I'm delighted to be here and to have this opportunity to share my qualifications and my ideas for the juvenile probate court. Now, I'm here to assert that the best experience for being a judge is, quite frankly, being a judge. Fundamentally, the juvenile probate court is a family court. So I feel it's important to note that I'm a married individual. My wife, Christy, and I have 3 daughters. We have a grandson. I'm the only candidate in this race that's actually raised children. I'm the only candidate who has actually worked in a children's home. I'm the only candidate who has actually been a foster parent. I'm the only candidate who has adopted a child. Additionally, my wife and I have guided 4 parents through extended illnesses and death in the past 4 years. So I'm the only candidate that can bring this degree of empathy and profound understanding of the workings of the juvenile probate court. I am the only candidate, as I referred to earlier, who is presently a judge, and this single qualification cannot be overstated. I've been the judge of our county's busiest court for 21 years. My annual caseload averages 10,000 cases a year. This caseload information is important since the juvenile probate court handles between 2,500 and 3,000 cases per year. And most importantly, 75% of that caseload is in the area of juvenile, the juvenile side, the juvenile division, which would involve behavior correction, not probate issues. I'm the only candidate who has actually worked in a courtroom every day for nearly 30 years. I've not diverted my career by starting a business. I've not taken my attention away from the courtroom. That is where I chose to work. I'm the only candidate who was a prosecutor. I've won local, state, and national awards for my service, dedication, and innovation in my court. I'm the only candidate who has prosecuted or presided in cases involving criminal child neglect, interference with custody, domestic violence, vandalism, sex crimes involving children, and I'm the only candidate who has 21 years' experience applying the standards that are applicable in cases involving the competency of individuals. I've spent nearly 30 years developing the expertise, the knowledge, and the professional relationships required to effectively address life's messy and too often very grave social problems. Most significantly, I've done it in an environment that has required me to resolve over 200,000 cases in 21 years. I'm the only candidate who brings this degree and level of experience to this job. Substance abuse is currently our county's #1 problem. I've spent nearly 3 decades studying and applying behavior correction methodologies. I have vast experience in treating substance abuse. I've lectured at every opiate summit that Ashtabula County has maintained, and I was invited to attend the state judicial summit on opiate addiction. I prepare public budgets, secure grants, implement cost-effective programming. I supervise magistrates, clerks, bailiffs, probation officers. The best experience, again, is being a judge, and on November 4, I ask that you make history with me and elect me to be the first judge who specialized in behavior correction, and elect me as the juvenile probate judge. Excuse me.
Please explain your civic experience. Example of boards you served on, concerns you have actively supported, and how you supported these. Mr. Altier.
Well, beginning back in the early 90s, I was on the Salvation Army Board and eventually became the head of that board. And we at that time, we were involved in several different programs, from fire rescue and obtaining a lot of the United Way funding, since many of the other agencies had left Ashtabula. The Ashtabula Historical Society was an umbrella group that was formed for cost savings, so that the Hubbard House, the Maritime Museum, as well as the Finnish American Heritage Society could function and maintain their 501c3 status with cost savings, not having to both have accountants. We would just have one accountant do everything. Currently, Cynthia Marsh Hartsgrove Township Park Trust is an organization. We're going to be creating a park down in Hartsgrove Township with that.
Thank you. Mr. Camplese.
This is an interesting question. As I sat here, I started connecting some dots as to my journey in being here tonight. And it occurred to me that I probably served 3 or 4, maybe 5 separate terms as a director on the Ashtabula County YMCA board. And in looking back, I guess my commitment to the youth of our county, to the families of our county, and to the problems that they face and the alternatives that they need to have available to them as young families and as young individuals probably started back when I became an attorney, and without even knowing it, this path has taken me to this spot. I'm currently on the YMCA board. I think I'm in my 2nd term. I believe next year I am termed out, so to speak, for probably the 3rd or 4th time that I've served on that board. I've served on the board of the Ashtabula County Speech, Hearing, and Rehabilitation Board as well. And again, the common theme, and I hadn't thought about it until just now, involves young people and the problems that young people have in dealing with handicaps of that nature. So those would be the 2 most relevant board experience and civic involvement that I would cite tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you aware of the Ashtabula Senior and Advocacy Protection Network and also the Volunteer Guardianship Program, and do you support these? Mr. Camplese.
Yes, I am. And you know, the Volunteer Guardianship Program actually has its roots back in the early 90s, I believe probably before Mr. Altier became an attorney. I remember several friends of mine who were working for Children's Services at the time were very actively involved in that guardianship program. For those of you that aren't aware of what the program involves, it's essentially people within the community. Typically it draws from the social work community and Children's Services I alluded to. And they will volunteer their time to essentially oversee the welfare of a person who is identified as having needed a guardian. Those individuals will guide them through life's difficult decision-making processes, help them make financial decisions, and keep their interests protected. And I applaud the program. I would maintain the program if elected as the juvenile probate judge. Thank you.
Mr. Altier.
Yes, the adult or the volunteer guardianship program was basically a one-person operation, and that was Pat Sorahan at Catholic Service League. We did get involved. We created we got jobs in family service with the late Sandy Fletcher as well as Jack Howe, and the adult protection caseworkers of Alice Harper and Barbara Scott. We put that together. I was basically the court liaison, and it just showed how you can get agencies to work together for a common goal of creating an advocacy group to protect the senior citizens in this community.
Thank you. Do you have a recommendation to resolve the overcrowding in our county jail? Mr. Altier.
I think the root of our problem is illiteracy and lack of family, especially when it starts with the young kids. The kids are in the juvenile court and generally through Children's Services, and then there's a big gap, and until they get in trouble, they're not back in juvenile court. There needs to be some sort of bridge in this gap on maintaining contact with these kids in their development. And that also goes right to the issue of illiteracy. These kids need to have success in education to keep them away from drugs and crime, where inevitably they will turn. Thank you.
Mr. Camplese.
Well, I'll focus my answer on things that as a judge I would have control over. First of all, there's 2 distinctions to this question. What has been discussed this evening relates to the adult population, those housed in the county jail. This question actually, as it would relate to this race, would relate to the Youth Detention Center and how that facility would be used. Now, I firmly believe that jail is not a solution. It is a tool. It is a tool which, if used appropriately, is very effective at creating crisis. And I think one of the things that is needed in the system is a close relationship between the action and the consequence. And the Youth Detention Center, being solely the juvenile probate judge's resource, would be under my sole control as judge. And basically what you do is you use the jail to get people's attention, to stimulate a reason for them to change their behavior. And then you provide structure, you provide a game plan, and a template, if you will, that is designed to help them rehabilitate or address the underlying problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates for Common Pleas Court, probate juvenile.